Good morning, my name is Josh from Cyclones Oz, and today we are going to be talking about a possible tropical low developing across West Australian waters, some very heavy rainfall that's expected for far north Queensland, and an east coast low that could form offshore from Sydney or southern New South Wales in around a week's time. So quite a lot to get through in today's forecast update. If you haven't already, then please consider subscribing and also leave a like on the video while you're at it. We're going to start things off by talking about far north Queensland, considering that is the threat in around a couple of days' time. The weather will be remaining quiet nationwide until probably around Wednesday, when we do start to see this onshore flow start to develop from a tropical low north of the Cape York Peninsula, just towards the east actually of Thursday Island and south of PNG. Now you can see this little bend in the rainfall curve down here. This means that we're going to see quite a lot of rainfall pulled up from the central regions of the Coral Sea, and that will collide with the Queensland coastline and create quite a wet end to this coming week for locations between Mackay up towards Cooktown, including Cairns and Townsville, and that will start to happen from Wednesday evening. We're looking at the Eastern River forecast model right now, and you can keep up to date with the time on the bottom part of your screen. You might also be able to see some thunderstorms expected to move into Queensland. We're going to touch on that in just a couple of minutes because that leads into the East Coast low forecast. But right now, all eyes up on far north Queensland, where up to 150 millimetres of rainfall could fall as a result of this onshore flow, which is the direct result of a developing tropical low over the West Australian waters. This is just kind of the precursor tropical wave and energy that is moving through northern Queensland. So the rainfall will pick up Wednesday evening into Thursday. Probably 50 millimetres or so will fall on Thursday, but it definitely looks like Friday and then Saturday are going to be the two wet days up here before the rainfall finally eases off on Sunday. So a wet end to this week and a wet start to the weekend up around Cairns and Townsville, where it looks like up to, at a rough guess, maybe 100 millimetres could fall, maybe 150 millimetres in one or two locations. And again, that's kind of reciprocated amongst the 10-day forecast. So on Friday, you're probably looking at about 100 millimetres, and then on Saturday alone, probably a further 100 millimetres or so on the absolute worst case scenario, for a total of maybe 200 millimetres in 2 days for some areas just outside of Cairns. The Axis G3 model is calling for a lot more rainfall to be falling. They're calling for up to around 300 millimetres to be falling around Innisfail and Tully, which again is quite plausible at this time. But I also don't have a high degree of confidence in forecasting this weather event right now, considering that the forecast has changed dramatically once again overnight. This is kind of just more like a heads up, although considering that it's about 3 or 4 days out now, this event, it's just at the end of this week, and both the Eastern River and the Axis G3 model have a very similar scenario playing out on both of their forecast models. I am more inclined to say that this system is actually quite likely to happen. We're probably going to see an onshore flow which will drive rainfall accumulations up from Thursday evening throughout Friday and then into Saturday morning and early evening before they should slowly start to ease off. And again, up to 400 millimetres of rainfall looks like the absolute most possible. You can see this pink spot just offshore, that's 400 millimetres plus. And in an event like this, I find it hard to believe that a spot won't pick up 400 millimetres on the Queensland mainland, just under the right shower band. The type of weather event that I'm kind of expecting here is consistent, heavy showers that have that sporadic sunshine in them every now and then, but there will be a lot of those showers moving through in quick succession. So rainfall accumulations be very quick to rise, especially for certain locations. There will be locations that also completely miss out on this rainfall. Hopefully they're not the parched inland areas, but it looks like areas around Mount Surprise and Atherton don't receive much rainfall at all. It's kind of just a coastal based event, and areas that have already received far too much rainfall this wet season, such as Innisfail and Tully, are going to be receiving even more rainfall on top of this. And this rainfall also extends down the coastline. Townsville can expect up to 80 millimetres. And then also down towards Bowen, Early Beach and Mackay, probably up towards 50 to 100 millimetres there as well. Even Rockhampton and areas around the Wide Bay area might receive up towards 50 millimetres as well in, I believe, the 5 to 10 day forecast period. Yeah, it's going to be the 5 to 10 day forecast period there. Anywhere south of probably Ogmore, it's probably going to become more of a thunderstorm-based event, which is associated with a developing east coast low, which we will just touch on just a second. But the remainder of the tropics around the Arnhem Land and also the parts of far northern Queensland, they are starting to dry up, just with the exception of the far north Queensland area around Cairns and so forth. You've probably got about 2 weeks left of true wet season activity before things start to dry up for good and we move into the dry season up there. Now, let's talk about these thunderstorms down across southeast northeastern Queensland and also New South Wales, because they will start to develop from tonight. We could be seeing some rainfall, especially in towards Victoria from tonight. I do believe that there will be some strong thunderstorms that move through the Victorian area throughout the course of today, which are associated with a strong cold front that's moving through. Definitely some possible severe thunderstorms here ahead of the dry line. I don't think temperature and humidity values are going to be high enough to really promote some strong thunderstorm activity, but still could be a hot day in New South Wales today, up to 35 in some places, and humidity values are also going to be quite high as well, which means there is the chance to receive some nice thunderstorms between a line of Bendigo up towards Mildura. So it definitely looks like Western Victoria is under threat from seeing some pretty significant thunderstorm activity throughout the course of today, and that might even extend in towards the Melbourne metro as well. By this evening into later tonight, we could be seeing some strong storms move through that area. The Eastern Blue are very supportive of it, but I do reckon they'll be dying off as they get into Melbourne, and they'll certainly die off as they move into the eastern parts of Melbourne and the eastern parts of Victoria as well. But you can see some nice thunderstorms firing up across northern New South Wales. This definitely looks like it's going to be quite a nice event throughout the remainder of today and into tomorrow. And just looking at the cold front right now on the satellite imagery, you can see it does actually look quite strong, and it's certainly a strengthening system too, and I believe it's got a pressure about 980 millibars or so, so it's certainly getting up there in terms of strength. Actually, it's got a pressure of nowhere near that. I don't know where I found that information on. I was looking at an old convective map probably, but again, it is certainly starting to get up there in terms of strength and intensity, and I do also believe that it has been slightly underestimated by the forecast models, considering this actually does look quite gnarly, and there will be quite a lot of rainfall in this front here. I believe up towards 100 millimeters from what the Access G3 model is saying? Not really. 150 millimeters in some areas, that just seems very bullish at this time, but there's certainly going to be places that pick up a widespread 25 to 30 millimeters of rainfall as a result from this cold front, and maybe up towards 50 millimeters as well as this cold front and the associated thunderstorms that move through too. And then, yeah, that heads into Melbourne and then into the eastern parts of Victoria, and again dumps a little bit of rainfall there. This is kind of the precursor front towards the east coast low. I don't feel that this is going to be the low pressure area that actually becomes the east coast low, but we will just take a look at the forecast anyway. Yeah, it looks like this cold front moves over into the Tasman, but it's going to be drawing down a lot of moisture from Queensland. You can't really see it on the rainfall forecast right now, but throughout the course of Wednesday, it's going to draw a lot of moisture down, and this is going to become a big low pressure area throughout Thursday, driving up some thunderstorms for Queensland into southeast Queensland and northeastern New South Wales on Thursday, just when the rainfall is really starting to pick up in far north Queensland as well. And then that is going to become the precursor low pressure area towards the east coast low, probably sometime Friday evening, before that jumps off the coast Saturday morning. And I mean, look at this system here. It's not going to be a long lasting storm. It'll probably last about 12 to 24 hours for some locations, but it is going to be strong by the looks of things. A lot of rainfall here, quite a gnarly amount of wind as well by the looks of things. We're probably going to be seeing wind gusts up towards 110 kilometers an hour here, funneled ashore around Sydney and Wollongong, and considering the proximity to the coastline, huge waves can be expected, probably up towards 6 meters on Saturday morning. So areas around the coastline certainly going to be dangerous surf conditions, very dangerous water conditions. Boating, fishing, swimming, certainly not advised at all unless you know exactly what you're doing and understand the risks of your activities, because this is going to be a strong front, that's for sure, or a strong low pressure system just offshore throughout the course of Saturday, before easing off Saturday evening and completely pulling away by Sunday. And it looks like it really does weaken off with the approach of another cold front. And yeah, this just really looks like a true winter pattern starting to develop for Tasmania, especially, and also southern parts of Victoria. We get that cold front move through from the Tasman Sea, swipes Tasmania, and then draws up a bunch of cold air from Antarctica. And it looks like the winter season will be well and truly underway by next week for the west coast of Tasmania, and probably some good amounts of snow as well on Tasmania as well. The Eastern Relief really supporting up towards a centimetre of snow there, so a nice dusting to start off the season. Access also lacking the chances of some snow, and the same thing with the GFS as well. I know it's a little bit hard to see on this imagery, but all the forecast models are now suggesting the chance of some snow there for Tasmania, for the Tasmanian Highlands. So it definitely looks like winter season 2024 is really trying to get underway, and this is exciting, watching a winter season really unfold. Again, there'll be much more coverage on this system as we get closer to the day. It's probably going to be sort of a Friday or next weekend sort of event here, but we'll be watching this very closely on this channel throughout the course of this week, and you bet there'll be great detail in the forecast updates as we get closer to the days. Now it's time that we take a look up in the West Australian waters for a developing tropical low. They'll be forming adjacent to the Kimberley region and north of the Pilbara region, Port Hedland and Karratha and major population centres like that. It isn't expected to be any land threat at this time. However, it could still have the chance of going AWOL and becoming a strong tropical cyclone. I know that the conditions really aren't favourable for this system, and I did highlight that yesterday, but just looking at the rain imagery right now on the forecast models, this does tell me that it's going to be in a nice pocket of very humid air by the looks of things. Maybe not so much so in the mid-levels. It looks like it's going to be fighting a little bit of dry air in the mid-levels and probably a little bit of wind shear as well. But again, this system looks like it might have just enough inflow to sustain a bout of rapid intensification or two throughout the course of next week, albeit it is very unlikely that this gets up towards Category 2 or 3 cyclone status, but I can't be ruling out the possibility of it not happening, just considering the sea surface temperatures at this time and just how favourable they are for tropical cyclone intensification. There is a lot of fuel available for this tropical cyclone to go boom. Now, long-range models have not been calling this a West Australian cyclone threat. I don't believe that it'll ever be a threat to the West Australian coastline either. It might enhance shower activity for the Kimberley, but again, really just too early to tell at this time. The Axis G3 model is actually a prime example of why I said that the system might have a chance of rapid intensification. If we play this run through very slowly, you can see that it is a very small system, and it looks like it wraps itself up very nicely with a nice eye-like feature on the rainfall imagery. This is definitely the Axis kind of preaching at this time. It's the Axis wanting a strong tropical cyclone here, but the fact that it remains a very small system in a very favourable environment in terms of sea surface temperatures, it means that it will have periods where it will be able to rapidly intensify if it has favourable mid-level humidities and good wind shear conditions. I don't think it will happen, but again, it's a possibility that I can't rule out just at this time. Now, the Gulf of Carpentaria system is still on the cards, but the fact that the models continue to procrastinate it day on day, it's now expected to it's not expected to form at all, but it is expected to be at its strongest probably around Tuesday or Wednesday, and that's about a full 48 hours later from where it was initially expected to be at its strongest. I just don't think that it's going to happen. I don't see a Coral Sea system for Queensland, a Gulf of Carpentaria system impacting Queensland rather. I do see that it will enhance rainfall and it will cause higher than normal rainfall accumulations for Queensland. Will probably extend the wet season by another week up there, but I just don't see it happening in becoming a tropical cyclone. So this system, although we will keep tracking it on the channel just to see what it does and see what it's up to, I don't think that's a system worth worrying about just at this time. But yeah, anyway, quite a lot going to be happening nationwide over the next week, especially from Thursday and Friday onwards. We're going to start things off with far north Queensland, and then at the same time there's going to be some thunderstorms for southern Queensland, and then it's going to turn into an east coast low next weekend for New South Wales, and then snow for Tasmania and a tropical cyclone as we get into next week up for Western Australia. So it definitely looks like we're moving into a more active period, that's for sure, in terms of weather over the next week. There's going to be a lot to cover as we move into this transition phase. Happy April as well. April Fool's Day today. There's no pranks in this video. We're 100% honest here. Just reporting what the forecast models are saying. There's nothing crazy going on here. That's for sure. Hope you had a great Easter as well. Enjoy your Monday long weekend, and I'll catch you all in the next storm. Goodbye.